Hi, my name is Stephanie Carter, and this is the Poisonwood Bible Analysis. Summary. A story told by the wife and 4 daughters of Nathan Price, a fierce Baptist who takes his family on a mission to the Belgian Congo in 1959. Each perspective of the situation given by the daughters and mother are different. The ending of the story involves the death of one of the daughters. Characters. Nathan Price, an overzealous Baptist minister who is driven to save as many souls as he can by the overwhelming guilt he feels as the only member of his army regiment to escape the Bataan Death March. Orlean Price, once a carefree, nature-loving, beautiful girl, Orlean has been beaten down by her husband's dour and fanatical views. Though she fears for her children's safety, she is kept passive by a combination of fear, loyalty, and the belief that God is really on her husband's side. Ruth May Price. 5-year-old Ruth May enters the Congo fierce and adventurous. After a bad bout with malaria, however, she becomes quiet and spiritless. Obsessively frightened by green mamba snakes, she is ultimately killed by one. Rachel Price. Rachel is materialistic and egotistical. Her appearance remains her chief concern throughout the story, and her own well-being is the only force that can motivate her. Leah Price. Leah is an idealistic tomboy. As she confronts the political and daily realities in the Congo, she loses her religious faith and begins to despise her father. She ends up spending her life working with her husband, Anatole, to improve the life of the Congolese. Ada Price. Leah's twin sister Ada is born with a condition called hemiplegia, which prevents her from using the left side of her body. Rather than view herself as a pity, Ada places herself in voluntary exile from the world, looking on as a wry and brilliant observer rather than an active participant. In the end, she devotes her life to science. Setting. In 1959, they moved from the U.S. state of Georgia to the village of Kalanga in the Belgian Congo. There are 2 different settings, Georgia and Zaire, which is the Belgian Congo. Differences, the traditions, cultures, people, language, way of life, Role sets the entire story up for the climax. History. After an uprising by the Congolese people, Belgium granted the Congo its independence in 1960. However, the Congo was left unstable because tribal leaders had more power than the central government. Theme. Major themes. The sin of Western arrogance, a transfer of faith from God to the natural world, the individuality of redemption, and the impossibility of absolute and ambiguous justice on a global scale. It's addressed through each character's perspective and stories, and allows for the plot to truly develop and enhances the reader's knowledge of not only the time period and place, but also the individual conflicts facing the story. The theme transfers from a more positive outlook to a more realistic, cynical view. Literary devices. The first one is personification. The forest eats itself and lives forever. Page 5. The forest is not a human and therefore cannot eat itself. The author uses this as a way to express the true nature and role of the forest. Throughout the story, the forest remains alive despite the tragic events that take place involving the Price family. Malapropism. Morse code on page 167. When Ada says Morse code instead of Morse code, the author uses this to show Ada's interest in higher learning and her age level education. Imagery. My father was a simple ugly man, narrow-witted and without particular dreams. Page 369. Imagery is shown by describing Nathan from the perspective of Leah. Words like simple, ugly, and narrow-witted show specific images. The author uses this to show Leah's current judgment upon the man she idolized at the novel's beginning, to show her perspective towards him has changed. Symbolism. I lay so still against the tree branch, I was just the same everything as the tree. I was like a green mama snake, poison. I could be right next to you and you wouldn't even know it. Page 196. Although the snake is feared and ultimately causes the death of Ruth May, it also is symbolic for the spirit of the jungle. The snake is Ruth May's hiding place, the muntu that she becomes after her death. Why? The author uses it as a way to foreshadow the death of Ruth May. Questions. How would you justify an Orlean staying in the Congo despite the danger toward her children? Fear, loyalty, and religious devotion. How was the climax, death of Ruth May, foreshadowed earlier in the story, her intense fear of mama's sake? How does Ada push past her disability and embrace her life, fighting its effects and focusing on science? How does the death of Ruth May finally push Orlean towards sanity? It ends her irrational devotion to her husband. Quote, One has only a life of one's own, Orlean, page 8. Oleanne is commenting on her daughter's accusations that she never had a life of her own, but had given everything for either her husband or her girls. This interested me because it seemed like she was placing blame on everyone except herself. Quote, it's a heavenly paradise in the Congo, and sometimes I want to live there forever, which is Leah, page 104. This interested me because it's foreshadowing. Leah is overwhelmed by the beauty and life of the jungle, but her wish will become reality, and she will stay in the Congo. Quote, Father says a girl can't go to college because they'll pour water in your shoes. Ruth May, page 117. I find this interesting because of the way Ruth May takes her father's metaphor literally, but it is indicative of the way the girls have accepted his twisted judgment as fact. Quote, in the Congo, it seems the land owns the people. Leah, page 283. Leah's casual statement is a fact of life in the Congo and one of the primary themes in the novel. I discovered more about the history of the Congo and the people that live in it. Overall, I enjoyed the story. I felt that Oleanne was being stupid for following her husband and not voicing her opinion. Honestly, Ruth May's death is necessary in order for the family to come to their senses and move on with their lives. Her death allowed for everyone's emotions to develop and end the madness involving their stay in the Congo.